Are you a business owner stuck in fear, doubt, and worry about what the marketplace will look like in the future? Then this show is for you. Strap on your seatbelt and get ready to disrupt and innovate. Here's your host, Lisa Levy.
It is my great pleasure today to introduce you to Kal K. Sahota. She is the President and Chief Executive Officer at HeroX. She brings a wealth of experience in corporate financial services and crowdsourcing. With 25 years of industry experience, Kal is uniquely positioned to support organizations in their open innovation efforts. She has successfully collaborated with renowned organizations like Lululemon, Anheuser-Busch, NASA, and MasterCard, enabling them to enhance their innovation velocity and return on investment by harnessing the power of crowdsourcing. At HeroX, Kal fosters an inclusive environment that breaks down barriers to participation, allowing individuals from various backgrounds and expertise to contribute their best ideas. Her passion lies in providing equal opportunities for individuals to learn, grow, and make a meaningful impact. Her impressive educational background includes certifications in selling skills, industry investment, industry licensing, CFP designation, and a diploma in finance from esteemed institutions such as the Canadian Securities Institute, Canadian Institute of Financial Planning, and the British Columbia Institute of Technology. Overall, Kal's experience and dedication to open innovation make her a valuable asset to organizations looking to tap into the collective intelligence of the crowd. Listeners and viewers, I know that you understand why I've invited Kal to this conversation. Welcome, and thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Lisa. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm so thrilled to hear your story. And I did the overall flyover of who you are, the formal bio-y type stuff. But our audience really connects more if you tell us about your journey and your story and how you ended up where you are today.
Well, my journey is a little bit serendipitous, but my career started actually in a completely different industry. So I was actually in financial services. I was with two relatively large firms. My first job was actually right out of finance school with HSBC Bank. Way back in 1991, I'm dating myself, but I just started with basic banking, but eventually headed up the mutual fund valuation team for our Canadian suite of mutual funds. So did that pretty quickly. My next main role was with Standard Life. So I was with HSBC for close to 10 years, and then I moved on to Standard Life, worked in their wholesaling team for mutual funds, and eventually worked my way into an executive role where I headed up the inside consultant team for mutual funds for Western Canada. So I live in Vancouver. I had two offices, one in Vancouver, one in Calgary. So for those of our listeners don't know the geographic difference, it's about an hour and a half flight. So after flying between two offices weekly for a few years and then flying into Montreal for every 6 to 7 weeks for a board meeting, honestly, I was done with travel. So I didn't want to do it anymore. It was challenging, it was taxing. So I took on a role with a small tax and boutique estate plan firm, Westward Advisors, and I worked really closely with the president and owner, Rob Darnbro, to grow the business, and that's the core reason that he brought me on. The ironic thing about that, I literally worked my way out of a job. So I worked with him to grow the business to such an extent that he decided that he no longer wanted to grow the business. He's all set, didn't want to be on a plane anymore. He wanted to sit back, spend more time with family. He said, you know what, Kal, I'll take care of you for a few months, but you're going to have to sort yourself out. That one crossroads in my career really secured my path to HeroX. So Rob and Christian Cottacini, who is actually the co-founder of HeroX, knew one another. And Rob suggested that, I take this business coaching class and there's a guy in there by the name of Christian. He just started a tech startup. I think you should talk to him. He could really use your skills. So on a Thursday over lunch, I got walked to the door by Rob, if you will. The very next morning at 9 a.m., I spoke to Christian for the very first time. And as they say, the rest is history. I'd also add that, and this is where I kind of started the conversation, this is not somewhere likely that I would have wound up. This is not where my career path would have taken me. I likely would have stayed within finance somewhere, somehow. But my journey, as I mentioned, is quite serendipitous. So I'd like to think that all roads led to HeroX. And, what we're up to is so beautifully aligned with who I am. I honestly couldn't imagine myself in any other industry.
all roads lead to Hero X. I love the idea of serendipity, right? I, by trade and training, am a project manager and I am a process manager. And the one thing I know for free is no matter how good the plan is, no matter how good the process is, it's never, ever going to go according to plan or process 100% of the time. And the power of serendipity is fabulous. So tell us a little bit about Hero X and what it is that you're doing and how that leverages and drives innovation.
So I guess just first of all, taking a step back to share a little bit about what HeroX does. So HeroX is an all-purpose crowdsourcing platform. And for some of our listeners who may not be familiar with crowdsourcing, the concept is actually really simple, but extremely powerful. It's actually been around for decades, but the use in everyday business is still very much gaining momentum. So if organizations are blocked with solving a business issue or quite simply looking for a new idea, they come onto our platform and they host a challenge. They clearly articulate what they're looking for, and they invite anyone to present them with an idea or a solution. So the platform itself is turnkey, gives organizations everything that they need to launch their challenge, to monitor it, everything including the judging process. It's all built and baked right into the platform itself. The overarching logic being, instead of limiting yourself to your in-house team or your direct contacts, you take it right to the crowd, and the crowd being defined as any of the over 3 billion people connected to the World Wide Web. So think about it like this. If you're an expert in your area for, let's just say, 20 years, you could have what they say, the curse of knowledge. You've been staring at the same thing over and over again for 20 years, which is often what can get in the way of finding innovative solutions. So someone can potentially come along and look at the same problem from a slightly different perspective and see something that you may have missed. That's where disruption lives. So by removing the expectation of credentials, you've drastically deepened your pool of potential problem solvers and actual solutions. So any organization can utilize our platform from enterprise to government, startups to Fortune 500s. In fact, one of our busiest clients is actually NASA. So how amazing is that, Lisa? I mean, they literally have rocket scientists at their fingertips, but they see huge value in crowdsourcing. In fact, they've embraced the concept of crowdsourcing for well over a decade.
I'm going to jump in because the NASA topic is so much fun.
Yeah.
And I've actually had several other people on the show recently talking about space and the role of NASA. And so I right, serendipity and how this topic is so incredibly powerful. But right, NASA and the idea of space and space travel, we are so curious about it and we are so engaged based on fiction, right? Television, movies, books, over decades and generations, that it makes perfect sense to me that NASA would embrace the power of the crowd, because the power of the crowd, there's creativity out there. And getting away from the curse of knowledge, another great phrase that you used, right? When we're in our boxes and using our training, right, we have blinders on and we expect certain things to happen. But when we remove all of that, the innocence of not knowing that what they should know better, I can see how NASA would leverage and have amazing outcomes with this platform.
You know, the interesting thing with that is as well is how you utilize crowdsourcing. So, you know, there's a term, technical readiness. So you might just ask for like a basic. So NASA might ask for a basic idea. They might take the idea and then they'll bring it in-house and then they'll build on it. So there's some times where you'll have like a full-blown prototype where they want like the full thing baked out and built. But, you know, you can utilize crowdsourcing in many ways just to get, a plethora of ideas. You select the top 5, you work the crowd, you bring the 5 in, and then you look at them very intentionally and determine which ones you actually want to move forward with, and then how you want to progress, etc. So, you know, when organizations think about it, it's like you open your boardroom up to the world, right? And you say, here's what we're looking for. They give you the ideas, you bring them in, and then you're welcome to close your boardroom. Because at some times where, teams and leaders might feel a little bit squeamish about the idea that, everybody comes in, sees what we're up to, the whole idea of competitiveness and intellectual property, all this stuff gets, organizations get nervous about it, but you can be as forthright as you choose. So long as you've asked the question in a meaningful enough way where you get good ideas, you can bring them in-house, close the doors, and you can continue your research and R&D to the extent that you need.
Well, and it's wonderful, right? The first step of an innovation process is ideation.
Absolutely.
And working with my clients, working in the space of innovation and running effective and efficient businesses, right? Having our customer at the center of our universe gives us the focus to figure out how we're going to define value in our products and services for our customers. And depending on your business, right, your customer base can be huge, and actually getting access to running formal focus groups and all of those different kind of panel interactions and town halls and all of those things can be big scheduling overhead. The logistics are a nightmare, and you're still not getting to everybody. This platform opens it up through the internet to get to anybody.
Yeah.
And so the input for that ideation and that prioritization kind of part of that process before even prototyping would even begin, you're getting a more holistic voice of a customer sort of input.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. And, even when there's some organizations that'll crowdsource internally within their internal teams. There's some organizations that are quite small and nimble, others that are like thousands and they're global. So even those organizations where, we've run some really interesting challenges where, they've got amazing ideas just from their internal team. And these are individuals that, wouldn't be a part of the strategic conversations, but they have great ideas because they're the ones that are boots on the ground sometimes. And they see some of the areas which don't potentially work well, but at times they're blocked. And, this is where some of the challenges come in, is to be able to have those conversations with the right team members to then be heard and to actually take their idea to, the individuals that can potentially implement it and make the difference.
Absolutely. And with the system, with HeroX, with the platform, you're giving them the ability, right? You're enabling a process with technology, which is one of those, right? That's what we want to do, right? That makes it a little bit more, it automates parts of it. You're storing data, you're making data available, right? So it can be more inclusive and you can get the input. It's not just, the leadership team sitting in a boardroom.
Correct.
Sitting on high with all of the best of intentions, but being layers and layers removed from the day-to-day, right? The voice of a customer service agent explaining what is valuable to a customer is more meaningful than the chief marketing officer trying to describe the same thing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree.
Right? Everybody has their value in their roles in their process, but the closer you are to the customer, the more real that input is.
Correct.
And so this platform opens that up, and that internal side, not only, right, you can go out and get legitimate customer views, but internally you can leverage across all roles, all lines of business, perspectives that you might not even think would have, insight, may have the most important insight ever. And I think sometimes a procure to pay perspective, right? Our collection teams, those who are trying to get money from people who are in, harsh and hard circumstances, always treat them well because we think we make assumptions about them not paying a bill when the reality can be so much different if we just understand the story.
Absolutely.
And I'm sorry, I don't know where that example just came from. They pop into my head and I run with them. So. I run with them, but getting that honest voice and from the closest touch point is really critical. Sitting in the executive level, we are, as teams focused on vision, on execution, on all of that, but not necessarily really close to the day-to-day impact our products or services have.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of the biggest challenges, with being in leadership. So I would, it's always been the case, but I would say it's more so today, is leadership is about orchestrating. So especially in today's day and age where there's a plethora of information available at our fingertips, And with the pace of business moving at the pace that it's going, where you're potentially coming up with a new technology and there's one behind it ready to make it obsolete because things are going so quick, so fast. How it used to be where you would walk into a room, into a boardroom, and, the most senior person in the room was, understood to know more, understand it the best, ask the most meaningful questions, etc. But getting away from that, to me, leadership was and should always be about orchestrating, putting the right people in the room, asking the right questions, making sure that you're leveraging all of the expertise that are around you in order to get what you need to drive your vision to the next stage. The vision is the responsibility of the team lead, whether it's within a team or whether it's a part of an organization. Trying to determine the best way to make your vision a reality, for you to think that you are going to be the one to be able to have the vision and do it all on your own may be the case. So maybe that can work sometimes, but I think it's a bit short-sighted because, again, the pace of business is so fast. When you surround yourself with strategic advisors, internal team members, crowdsourced ideas, trying to get the best way to take this vision forward, that to me is a winning strategy. So you're an orchestrator. You're not meant to know everything.
I wholeheartedly agree. And the power and the diversity of the voices that are contributing to the design, the solution, the idea, whatever it is. When I facilitate ideation sessions, one of the fun things for me is here's one of, go for and find the biggest, craziest, most outlandish ideas that you can come up with. Don't qualify them. Don't give me all of the reasons why they will never happen. Right. But when we open it up and we make it that big and we let all of those ideas come through, yeah, a percentage of those are going to be absolutely ridiculous and unattainable. But the creativity that it sparks and the next level of ideation that comes out of it are the things that can change the trajectory of a business.
And that's where one of the areas I would say, or one of the blockages is, there's a plethora of reasons why, innovation is challenging in an organization. From, you're applying traditional metrics and KPIs to open innovation because you can't apply the traditional ones. If you do, you will look to see in it, it'll occur as though it's failed. That's not necessarily true. Open innovation, as we talked about already, it might give you the seed of the idea and it may take 2 years to build out, but there's a timeline there that's distinct to what we would consider a typical KPI. There's internal processes that don't support, forward-looking thinking and open innovation. There's another, and I would say probably the biggest one, is company culture and core values. And why I see that as one of the biggest blockages is when you don't have the strength and the foundational, solid foundation of core values, then the psychological safety oftentimes doesn't exist. And in the absence of psychological safety, if you're working, in your role and somebody suggests to you, Lisa, why don't you, use Hero X and, get some great ideas. Let's use open innovation. Your thought may be that, what if we get presented great ideas, am I going to get replaced? Is this platform going to replace me? Is the innovator that we award the prize to, who gave us the best idea, are they now going to come in and replace me? So in the absence of psychological safety, you have individuals that stick to what they know and they don't want to go outside of it. There's a threat to them inevitably. But when you have solid core values and the psychological safety exists, then that is no longer a concern.
And you touch on a really important idea, right? That open innovation is a cultural commitment. It has to be something that is embraced and understood at the highest level of the organization, down through every layer, so that every individual in the workspace understands that it is a safe place to experiment. Right. And in that mindset, going through, and running all of the different ideas, all of the little prototypes, the big prototypes, whatever they are, right? The experiments that drive some form of a result. Some of them are going to give us results that are really positive. And some will give results that say, we don't ever want to do that again. That is not value added. Some people would call those failures, but it's just not the result you wanted. And you move on and you keep going. And that is a cultural commitment that, your platform, Hero X, can do what it does really, really, really well, but without people and a process ahead of that to understand how we're using it, it won't change anything if the psychological safety isn't there and that the corporate culture of embracing innovation isn't there to start with.
Yeah, and it all ties into the future of work, passion-driven work, individuals that don't want to work 9 to 5, they want to work when they want to work, but they're so passion-driven. And that, like, what does the future of work look like, especially since the pandemic? You see individuals that are working from home and they've made the decision that they would much rather work on things that they're much more meaningful to them. And maybe it's what that looks like is not sitting behind a desk, putting on a suit and commuting into downtown, into an office building and sitting behind a desk for 8 hours. Maybe that's not the way it looks. So there's a shift there, and that shift is becoming more and more prevalent over time. And, I would even offer that with the shift in the way organizations, the culture, processes, all the things we talk about that are getting in the way, I think when there's fresh leadership, some of that will potentially self-correct. And maybe that's a decade down the line where some of these blockages will fix themselves, where you have, like, again, for those of us that are older, we step aside and, you have the newer, generation coming up with this new, fresh way of thinking. And when they take on the leadership roles, some of those restrictions and constraints in the thinking are disappearing. So, but from now until then, work needs to be done. And I think a lot of it comes from understanding. So when you understand, so the buy-in to crowdsourcing and open innovation, I think it's definitely there. Like when I started doing this, and this was over 8 years ago now, it blows my mind it's been that long. But I would get onto calls with clients, and I would oftentimes, they would confuse crowdsourcing with crowdfunding.
Mm.
Now, crowdfunding is a type of crowdsourcing, but you're crowdsourcing dollars versus ideas. So, we'd have to explain the distinction. Okay, now I get it. Those conversations are next to none now. So being at the tip of the spear, I can see for all these 8 years how the conversations have definitely progressed. I can also see that when I attend events where previously the term innovation was rarely in titles. Now you go around the room. We hosted a couple of workshops last September at an innovation event, and it was amazing how many times innovation came up in their titles. And it's very much moving forward. So the what it is kind of understood, and the value to it, I think, is getting there as well. But the how is where I see the stuckage, and which is where some of the constraints that I've already spoken about really get in the way. But if we were to focus on the how, support organizations in even facilitating understanding the how, then I think the rest of it's going to sort itself out.
I would tend to agree with that thought. And when I work with clients, I have a mindset that for things to happen, we have to have the right people doing the right work. And then we have to have processes that are effective and efficient, documented, trained, understood. And then we enable things with technology, and that gets growth and scale.
Mm.
And in this whole process, what you're really talking about, right, is supporting them through getting the right people in the process going, because Hero X is that technology that lifts an internal innovation process, whether they're using it internally or externally, but it's driving the innovation process. And so with that, you have done work with large organizations, right? You've talked about NASA. I mentioned Anheuser-Busch. Lululemon would be an emerging company, right? They're big, but they're not Anheuser-Busch. Is the adoption of the idea of innovation easier to seed in and make real in a smaller company versus a large enterprise corporation?
I would say yes. And the bigger issue being, things can get stuck in a small organization too, and that really just depends on leadership. So the mindset of leadership is what's most critical. And if you invest at the leadership level, then that's what is going down all the way through to the bottom. So it can have challenges in a small organization, but I think with a large organization, there's so many layers.
Yeah.
That's the biggest challenge, right? So, perhaps with some of these larger organizations that, oh, we need to innovate, we need to innovate. Oh, let's put a chief innovation officer in place. Great, fantastic. We have one now. What's their mandate? You need to innovate. Okay, great, I'm going to innovate. What does that really mean? Right? So that's the biggest challenge here, is trying to understand like what actually needs to be done and how to make it so. Innovation is in a way oftentimes an overused word. It doesn't mean it's misused, but it's now you can't even watch like a commercial on television without, innovation with car commercials and this and that. It's constantly being dropped on us. But I think understanding what innovation means to your organization and what those criteria for success are around how you want to drive your innovation strategy forward, having those really clearly marked and having those metrics in place helps you to ensure that innovation for what it means to you as an organization is actually inching forward.
And right, it's an age-old thing, right? That which is measured gets done.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. Yeah. And so if we have good metrics around it and we know what it means to drive innovation, because it could mean internal innovation. How are our processes performing? What are we doing internally and how we run our business? Innovation can be our products and services. That's external, right? And it also can be, a response to external disruption. And we have to, the phrase, and I hate it, right? We're going to pivot, which is a word for innovating. It's a shortcut, I think it devalues it, but that is what it is. And all of these things. So yeah, knowing what words are powerful, knowing what we mean when we say them is absolutely critical. Mm-hmm. With the years that you've spent in the industry and playing and influencing open innovation, where do you see future opportunities in this space? Where can innovation be used as a disruptive tool? What are things that HeroX and you can do to influence positive outcomes in the future?
And I think it already speaks to what I've already kind of mentioned already, just being in service of our clients and really understanding where they are in their innovation journey. I think that is the biggest place. It's the most basic place. I think that is the biggest place that we can make an impact with what we do on a day-to-day basis. There's organizations and individuals that come to us that have a really clear understanding of how crowdsourcing works. Once they have those solutions, how they are going to then implement them internally within their organization. And they have those metrics there. So they can go to their leadership team and say, we innovated here. We took this, crowdsourced idea, brought it in-house, and this is what it got us. The ROI was blank, whatever that was. Now, if we had done it traditional ways, Mr. or Mrs. Leadership or whatever, whoever they are, it would have cost us this. So those are the metrics and those are the dollars that we don't have, because organizations obviously are going to be a little bit more tight-lipped because it's their financials. But we know from conversations, for example, with our NASA team, that they've shared in some of their presentations, not necessarily to us, but just to the broader world, the impact that it's had on their ROI. It's been huge. It's been tremendous. So I think from understanding what the technical readiness and not just the knowledge level of those that are responsible for the innovation of an organization, where it sits, and then inching them forward. And again, it comes from understanding, making sure they have the knowledge that they need to then take it forward and understanding what their organization is wanting from them. So partnering with them, supporting them with their knowledge level, and then moving them forward. And oftentimes with our clients, they'll contract with us and then they get off on a kickoff meeting. Our customer success team is remarkable. I mean, I can't say enough amazing things about them. Our testimonials, we have to stop our clients from continuing to say things. It's like, okay, we get it, they're great, but they're so committed. And the common thread with now I know I'm digressing, but the common thread with the HeroX team is we're up to bigger things, right? That they're impact based, and that's what the core of them is. So when they get on a call with a client, they really want to drive that success for them, because that's the cornerstone to who we are, and whatever that takes. And at times it'll be educating them helping them, navigate their own internal processes, and we will be that place of conversation for them.
Absolutely. And I feel that your team has this mindset. My favorite success metric for work that I do is not about my results, it's about my clients' results. Right. And so and I guess for your team, right, that's an X factor that drives their mission. And
well, they're coached that way, right? They're coached to be in service of their clients. So at HeroX, when we bring people onto the team, whether you're a vendor, whether you're a contractor, whether you're like a team member, we're very clear that we're looking for a core value fit. If you don't fit our core values, then you can be an expert to no end, but we do not want to bring you into the team because it's really critical for us. And when we have those conversations, one of the biggest things we teach our team members is you must show up to every conversation in service of every conversation. So either you're in service of your clients, you're in service of your partners, or you're in service of each other. But if you're showing up to a conversation and that conversation is in service of you, then we're going to invite you to leave that conversation, because that's not what this is. We're always in service of. And when you stand from that place, you're continually bringing your listening, trying to understand what the needs are. And that's where this team that we've put together, that I'm hugely proud of, they bring their listening. And that, in my humble opinion, is what, takes their abilities to service our clients to that next level.
Absolutely. And, we've talked about it in terms of, organizational success, but you really bringing it home. Core value alignment is foundational, and your team is living it from the hiring process to day-to-day operations, right? In service of, and that is absolutely beautiful. Kal, if people want to reach out and learn more, how do they find you? How do they find HeroX?
It's really simple. You just go onto the website. So herox.com is our website. So for those of you who may potentially want to host a challenge, go to the site. I would take a look at some of the current challenges, that are live on our site. It gives you a sense of the different types of projects that exist. We're also industry agnostic, because you can get a sense and feel of like what different industries use us for. It helps to take the concept out of conceptual and really like make it real and concrete. So the live examples you'll find really helpful. You can also see there's multiple success stories on there as well. So you can get a sense and feel of how organizations have used us successfully. For our innovators, those that actually want to come and compete in these challenges and potentially present organizations with solutions, again, go onto our site, get registered, join our community. There's, again, a plethora of challenges that are on our site. You can self-select any one of the challenges that you want to potentially compete in, or maybe you're just curious, so you can just follow it, and then you'll get notifications and you can follow the success of it. And if anyone wants to reach out to me, Kal@herox.com, if anybody has any specific questions, they're always welcome to reach out to me.
Absolutely wonderful. So, right, two ways to engage with HeroX. You can host a challenge, or you can be an innovator and contribute to solutions for existing challenges. So a wonderful way to be a part of a community of innovation, driving businesses forward.
And that's actually the most meaningful place for me, is that side of the business. We've talked about tapping into cognitive surplus and sourcing ideas from the crowd. That's where my passion lies. Crowdsourcing by design removes all barriers to entry. And what I mean by that is, at HeroX, there's no credentials that are required to join the community. So anyone can self-select to join the HeroX crowd of solvers and then, commit to any challenge if you want to present a challenge, a solution. The process democratizes opportunities for all citizens of this world. There's no preference or consideration to whether you've graduated from a Harvard or an MIT, or whether you've gone to school at all. If you have the best idea, quite simply, you can win. You have equal opportunity. So I'm an individual who cares very deeply with leaving this world in a better place. If I could feed every hungry child or provide a home for every homeless person, I would do that, but I don't have the means. So my focus, and this team's focus, is less on providing them fish to eat, but more about teaching them how to fish. to win prize money so they can provide for themselves and their families without any constraints that may otherwise get in their way. So leaving this world in a better place is where my passion lies. And and we talked about this a little bit, when you have passion-driven work no longer feels like play. Work no longer feels like work, it feels like play. And you can do it all day, every day. And this is a remote team. And you would think that most organizations have a challenge getting productivity out of their team. My biggest challenge is getting them offline. They're online 11 p.m., 1 in the morning at times. It's like, you need to get your rest. When it's passion driven, it no longer feels like work, it feels like play.
So in this, right, to participate and contribute ideas and potential solutions, open to anybody with the idea, best idea wins. And the focus ultimately in all of this, right, making the world a better place. Kal, thank you so much. I have one final question, and it's a random sort of a little bit about who are you, but what's your favorite way to unwind at the end of a long day?
I mentioned that our team is 100% remote. So being in the house can occur sometimes that I'm still in the proverbial office. So I really enjoy sitting outside at my desk and just reflecting. And if the day has been quite hectic, and most days it is, I love to sit outside and just silence with a nice glass of wine. Other days, maybe playing some lounge music in the background, but just outdoors, being one with nature is just a great way to just relax and shake your day off a little bit.
And separate work and life and take those few minutes.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Audience, we've had a wonderful conversation with Kal today, and we've talked about the power of open innovation and how it impacts internally in your organization in terms of efficiencies and opening up the realm of what's possible, and how getting the voice of the crowd just levels up your ability to make an impact to your clients, to your customers. As always, remember, don't get left behind. Join me next time.
That's it for today's episode of Disrupt and Innovate. Head over to iTunes and subscribe to the show. Every single week, one lucky listener that posts a review on iTunes will win the grand prize drawing, a $15,000 private VIP day with Lisa Levy. And be sure to head over to disruptandinnovate.com and get your free copy of Lisa's gift. And join us on our next episode.